Hello, welcome to the Movie Poster Fan Club, another weekly poster roundup for the week of the 23rd of September. Got a few big posters today, including this one, Gladiator II. I think by now you'll know that I'm not a big fan of these floating head posters, especially I feel like it's just such a cliche having the floating heads at the top, the title, and then underneath the title, some scene or some setting from the movie, and that's exactly what we have here. It's not a cliche that I particularly like. I feel like it's very commercial. But as far as floating heads are concerned, I guess I don't really mind this one just because I like sort of the shape that is made out of these heads. I just kind of wish that the rest of the structure weren't just so typical. I would say that maybe this giant Roman numeral 2 could be seen as something original. I kind of like that. But then it's made redundant by just having another 2 in the title. I'd be lying if this were any higher than a C. Okay, Goodrich. It's very, very simplistic in its design, and it's not particularly original. But what is original about this is sort of its premise, and that's using sort of like physical material to create this under the sea effect. And I just always appreciate it when poster designers use more than just photos to design their movie posters, but rather there's some visual artistry involved, as simplistic as it may be. But this does feel like it is tactile. It's like a creative way of sort of showing him that he's underwater. It says if life isn't kicking your ass, it's not doing its job. And I feel like that's metaphorically represented through the under the water effect. This title here reminds me maybe a bit too much of National Geographic, but other than that, I do like the yellow and the blue. I think that's a B. Okay, Here. This is the second Here poster I've reviewed. At first glance, I thought that maybe this one could be better than the last, but it's just as bad, isn't it? Because it's just, I don't know, it's just 3 stills from the movie. It's meant to be like kind of feel good. It's meant to show time passing by, but it's like done so in maybe the least original way possible. Showing them get older, like, and a birthday cake for that matter in the middle, like, oh look, they're aging. I feel like it's just so on the nose, and there's really not much of a design concept here. I suppose that like the sizing of these pictures was like some sort of artistic direction, you know? It's like, okay, we're not gonna have 3 pictures side by side that are identical. We're gonna have one a little bit higher up and one that's like longer in the middle. There's some direction there. I don't know how well it works necessarily. I'm going to put that in C, and that might be being kind. Okay, it's What's Inside. Now this one's got like a really cool retro vibe to it. You can see it's like illustrated. You can see it's got these sort of glowing colors to it. Very 80s. I think that's pretty cool. I like how they're kind of coming out of the image here. It's very horror coded, but its horrorness is kind of subtle. Other than this lady over here, none of these characters seem particularly scared. They're all just sort of, you know, living their lives. I guess these guys seem like they're kind of running away from something. The reason why it is horror-coded, though, we have this like villainous sort of character in the middle. We have this sort of weird blurry effect on the title that's like in italics, and that sort of gives you kind of spooky, you know, old VHS vibes. And then the fact that the tagline's in red, and also they decided not to keep it nobody, but nobody. That like finally confirms to me that it's like a horror film. It's a unique take on a horror poster. The fact that the laurels are green is kind of interesting. You wouldn't necessarily expect it because there's not much green in the rest of the poster. But I imagine that they chose it just to complement with the orange from the rest of the poster. I'm only just realizing, I thought this was like the trunk of a car, but it seems to be like a trunk as well, like a luggage. I always enjoy a little bit of retro in my posters. I'm going to put it in the A tier. The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. Now, this is the other cliche I don't really like, is when the floating heads aren't just floating heads in the poster, but rather overarching floating heads that are kind of godlike at the top of the poster, just sort of looking down on the poster. This sort of golden brown color scheme makes the whole poster look a little bit bland. I feel like maybe it's lacking a bit in color. I guess they wanted her to stand out with her red hair and shield, but I don't think it stands out that much. And I don't really like that title. It's not that easy to read. especially with a word like Rohirrim that no one's going to really know how to pronounce that anyway. I'm going to put that in C. Daisy Ridley, Magpie. I actually quite like this one. One thing that I like about it, like clearly the light source isn't the phone, right? Because you can see that the back of the phone is also lit with this kind of light blue. It seems like the whole thing is being lit by the phone. It gives that same effect. I like how they didn't require to show her whole face. You can only see half of her mouth. But the eyes are what's important in this case for the designer. I really like the font of the title there. I like the way that these credits are sort of sprawled across the negative space here. It's a really nice use of space, giving everything other than this one corner just like dedicated to like this one striking picture. So I think that that's really well done. I just really like the execution. All right, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Now, I've reviewed a couple of Megalopolis posters. This one is the best of the three. It's still a bit text heavy, personally, but the way that the title is written out vertically rather than horizontally is interesting. The fall of this sort of statue lady, I feel like it gives the epic vibes that I think the other posters were trying to do but weren't good at doing. I like that they continue to use gold in this poster, but way more restrained than the other posters that were just so overbearing in their goldness. I think that this one does deserve a B. Okay, Moana 2. Is there really any difference between this and the other Moana poster? I don't know. These sort of Disney animated films get really lazy with their poster design. I don't think I'm going to put this in D, even though I kind of want to, because I do like the colors here. I feel like this whole purple vibe in the top half of the poster with the stunning blue in the bottom half. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to put it in between those two. A Real Pain. We've now seen quite a few of these like indie movies that are just like a photo with the text, and it's really a balance on how to utilize the text and the photo to make them complement each other really well. And this one really succeeds at that. I like the greenness of everything, but how they're sort of backlit with the sun, and that's just, that's refreshing. They're not using like a studio. It's a really nice photo in general, and I like the text. In the text, it's sort of like a third person in this, it's kind of on the side. It's not centered. I kind of like it when things are sort of off center, but in like an aesthetically pleasing way. It's a little generic in general. I'm going to put it in B. Okay, Sinners. Okay, there's some really cool things about it, and then a couple things that I'm a little bit disappointed by. For one, I think that the font and the use of text in general, it's sparse, but it's like, effective. I really like the way that the setting sun is on the foreground. I don't think I've ever seen that before on a poster, and that's really epic. I like these effects that they use in front of the sun. We have like this sort of cracking effect here. We have this sort of thing that looks like it's been taped. It's got a really cool sort of texture. But I just think that the use of color and shadow to sort of create the good and evil dichotomy, it's a little bit on the nose, like the way that he's just all blue, he's all red. It says Dance with the Devil, so I can only imagine that guy's the devil. I don't know. But it's just a little bit uninspired in the sense of trying to convey a sort of theme. I think it's definitely still a B for sure. It's like it is a cool poster. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm sort of giving reasons why I don't think it's quite an A. Okay, Sonic 3. To be fair, I prefer this Sonic poster to the last Sonic poster because, well, this one's just a little bit more simplistic. There's movement to it. I like that. I like the way that it's illustrated to make it seem like there's long exposure in the background, so the background's sort of kind of blurry due to the movement of the poster. Like, there's some really cool things here, and it tells you that it's going to be like action. They even went so far as to not even include Sonic the Hedgehog, the title, which I think is the right move, because by looking at this guy, even though I don't think that's Sonic, that's probably like the villain in the movie, right? But we already know, just by his design, we already know what it is. My only slight complaint with it is that it looks a bit more like a character poster than it does a theatrical poster. I think I'm going to put that in a low B. Okay, Thunderbolts. This one's pretty cool. I like this one. It's sort of like a meta poster, right? Because they're sort of struggling to fit onto the same poster, and it's sort of self-aware that they're on a poster. I like just their layout in general. I feel like I've seen this concept done before, though. I don't know if it was like in Suicide Squad Or I know in like Toy Story 3 we have all these characters that are like fitting onto the same poster, but they're not like struggling in the same way. So I don't know, maybe it is original, but I feel like I've seen it before. So if you guys know which poster I'm sort of thinking about in my head, please put it in the comments and let me know. I do like this concept though. It does immediately give you like a tone for the movie, and I do like the tagline as well. That's pretty nice. Careful who you assemble. It's also pretty meta. It's also kind of tongue-in-cheek, and it also helps tell us what the tone and feel of this movie is going to be. Maybe my one complaint is that this font for the title there is a little bit generic. It looks like Helvetica or something. Maybe there's a very specific reason they went with that. But anyway, I think that's a B. That's everything. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you at the next one.